We're back. Another video breakdown. Trey Scotti is with me, and we've got a couple of games to talk about here. Xavier won a thrilling game at home against Georgetown and then lost a tough one on the road at Creighton. And Trey has some great stuff for us to look at once again. So, Trey, what do you want to start off with today?
I want to start off with the Georgetown game and just kind of the problems that they presented. And obviously Georgetown, you know, they're a new roster, new coaching staff, a familiar coaching staff to the Big East with Ed Cooley. But just I think they're still figuring out their identity. They've got a lot of new guys. You know, they're nowhere near as good as they're going to be going in. But that said, they did present some problems, you know, really right from the jump in this game against Xavier, starting, you know, with the head of the snake and Jayden Epps. And Epps he's a really interesting guy. He's high volume. He's a shoot first lead guard. He's a guy that when I was at Xavier, we were tracking in high school. You know, I'm not saying we could have ever gotten him or, you know, it just didn't end up going his way, you know, when you're taking other guys. But I think one of the concerns when you have a guy like that is he's such a high volume shooter, you know, can you recruit other guys to play around him, right? And so I think for Georgetown at this point in time, you know, he's a good fit for their roster, especially this year, that they are maybe a little bit on the lower end of talent in the Big East, just given this turnover of their staff. And Georgetown's obviously struggled in year one, but Epps is that type of guy who can really carry you offensively when he gets hot. You know, I'm watching Northwestern Illinois last night, Boo Buie. Like there's a certain kind of guards that can really carry you throughout a game offensively, just with ball screens and hunting mismatches. And then at the end of the game, being a go-to guy, which obviously Xavier did something very interesting at the very end, which we'll get to. But just he was interesting to watch. You know, Jay Heath, there were some great sound bites from the game as well about how they were guarding Jay Heath a couple times, how they got burned. They had a couple huddles with Sean Miller, and so we'll get to that as well. So overall, just really guarding those two guys, I thought was really what transpired throughout the game in terms of maybe Xavier not being ready to go from the jump, maybe strategy-wise, maybe that was a little bit of guys just not ready to go. And they did turn on the Jets there at the very end when it mattered the most. So I'm going to go ahead right now. I'll pull up some of these clips with Epps. And again, like I said, like Epps is a really special player. He can burn you in a variety of ways, particularly as a ball handler and a point guard here. So we'll go ahead and start off here at the very beginning of the game. And here's him in the middle of the floor. McKnight's up on him. And, you know, Xavier's been in a drop defensively, you know, for a vast majority of this year, especially in the middle third of the floor. When I say the middle third, if you look at, you know, if you take with the lane line on each end or kind of through the X in the middle, right, that would be the middle third. And they've dropped pretty much all throughout the year in different positions when they've had a guy like Abu guarding. So you'll see here, he's sitting down. He's almost around the free throw line, which is normal for their defense. And what Georgetown does is they're setting this screen high. And they're setting the screen high because they want to get Epps into a pull-up three, right? And Xavier's done a great job forcing a lot of pull-up twos this year. And we've talked about that. And, you know, hey, Braden Smith had a really good game back in the Purdue game with the pull-up twos. But across the board, this has been a pretty good strategy for Xavier. And so what Georgetown's doing here is like they're trying to flip the math here as opposed to a pull-up two. And they're trying to get Epps into a pull-up three. And you can see when you call a play like this, number one, you want to get your best player in a position to score for Georgetown. Number two, you may just want to see how Xavier's guarding it and see if they're going to adjust. And they go to a drop. Epps bangs in the three, okay, right away. Later in the half, okay, now you'll see Abu's a little bit higher up. So this is what you would call a flat show. He's flat. He's not trying to push Epps to the X necessarily. He's more taking him to the sideline until Claude can get back in front.
When you say flat, you mean he's like even with the screener, basically, right?
He's even, yes. So if you look at Sean Miller at the top of the screen, right above Cole, right, and you go down, if you go down laterally through the Cintas, that would be a flat show, okay? You're taking that guy on a flat angle directly to the sideline in a straight line. That's kind of your goal, and your goal is to even him off until the Claude in this example gets back in front. Now, Claude, it's not perfect, right? It's not a perfect defensive possession. It's pretty good. Swain does a pretty good job here. He's guarding a guy who's not a complete shooter, number 31 for Georgetown. So he gets in the gap and kind of saves it a little bit. Again, it's a little bit of a feel thing. It's not something that Xavier's done a ton this year, so they're not going to be perfect in it. But they did make this adjustment at times. It kind of went back and forth, right? Here's a little action from Georgetown, okay? This is just a shallow cut. So you'll see here, number 20 for Georgetown, he's setting a ball screen, okay? You've got this other cutter, okay? He is going to, that is what's his name again, Rick? I'm sorry, Jay Heath. Jay Heath. So Jay Heath has gotten hot at the beginning of this game, which we'll get to. So you use Jay Heath as a shallow cut. He is a decoy, right? So he's hot. We know this at this point in the game. So he shallows out. Now he's deriving that attention. So you see McKnight, he's having to chase him, okay? Abu is not up to touch on the ball screen. So we just showed the last clip where Abu is up in flat show. Well, at the point of the ball screen, he's not there. There could be no flat show, right? And again, that's just adding layers to what you're running offensively. You're complicating things a little bit where, again, you're just adding different points to this play where it's not just Abu and Claude playing 2-on-2, right, with Georgetown's ball screen here. They're making this more of a game of 3-on-3. He slips out. Again, this still ends up being a tough 2, right? This is kind of Xavier's defensive scheme as a whole. Abu still gets to his drop like you're seeing. Claude does a decent job getting back in front and contesting a 2. But again, Epps is just a really good player. He's one of those guys that he can make shots in any way off the bounce. He's an incredible jump shooter. You know, again, that's who he's been his career, high school, AAU, college to this point. He was a Big Ten starter last year as a freshman and had some good scoring outputs from time to time. And so that's what he can do. Now it's just a game of 2-on-2 again. So if we just look at the ball screen, Lazar's up. Okay, this is another counter from Georgetown. So earlier in the game, they're setting screens, for Epps with a 5 who's not a pick and pop guy. Okay, so when Lazar is showing, okay, you see he's in the flat show. He's going lateral, okay, until McKnight gets back in front. If that's a non-shooter setting the screen, okay, if that guy's rolling to the rim, this is not as much of an issue, okay? Since he is popping, and again, this is a little adjustment from Georgetown. Okay, you're going to flat hedge. We'll put a shooter in it. Since Lazar has to come out, you'll see Epps. He kind of draws him out pretty much on purpose, right? Like, see Epps, he's drawing laterally, and his eyes are to 20 right away. Okay, now you have 2 on the ball. Okay, that's why, again, in a drop, your goal is to keep the game a game of 2-on-2. That's the pros to a drop. Right now, you're going to give up mid-range jumpers or maybe pull up threes against a guy like Epps, but you're not having to evolve with the guys in the play. Now in this situation, okay, you have Oliveri down in the corner. Is it going to be his rotation? Is Lazar going to be quick enough to get back? That's asking a lot. Now, Lazar's a good athlete. You're asking a lot of a guy to flat show to the middle third of the floor and run all the way back out and cover a guy with some skill. That creates a closeout, okay? That creates a drive. That creates a 2. And that's all because of Georgetown putting number 20 in this ball screen, who's got more skill as a shooter and a perimeter player than some of those big setting screens earlier on. So we're seeing, it doesn't seem like a big deal maybe watching it live, but we're getting a little bit of cat and mouse with these ball screens early on, okay? Again, Xavier's coverage was inconsistent. Rick, I don't know if that was by design, if they're trying to give Epps different looks. That could be, right? They also just, they're not as used to flat show, like I said. So there could be sometimes they just weren't able to execute it. And again, easy to say, hey, we're going to flat show every time. Harder to execute, right? This is a transition clip. Again, you've got Abu, like he's a bigger guy in size, like he's a decent athlete. I don't think anybody would consider him elite with his short space quickness. So you're asking a lot of him in this clip, right? Find a guy in transition, be up, and again, all it takes is a 1-second mistake. You see Abu, he's in a drop. Again, he's all the way back at the elbow. That screen is set. The screener's feet are all the way outside the 3-point line, and Epps is able to get to a spot. Right, this is a great shot for Epps. This is a great shot for Georgetown. And again, it burned him when he got to this spot. There wasn't many times they got to a drop. He shot a 3, and it worked out for Xavier. Same sort of situation, right? Now you have Giedis, and again, he's not in a flat show. It's not – I don't really know what it is, to be honest. It's kind of like a little bit of no man's land. He's not disrupting the ball. It's not necessarily a drop. McKnight now, again, he just hit a 3 right about a minute ago. He's worried, getting back into the play. He draws a foul on 3. Again, that's just getting what they want. So now, okay, we're still in the first 3 minutes of the second half. We have a 3. We have a foul on a 3. Okay, now we have a switch. So now we have Giedis. Again, we've talked about this. Giedis has gotten better defensively. Is he elite? Is he perfect? Is he going to be winning All Big East Defender of the Year? No. but he has been better on this end of recent. So now he's kind of squares Epps off. Okay. Again, this is for Georgetown. This is not a horrendous shot, given who's shooting it, who else is on their team at this point. Is it a horrendous contest by Giedis? I would say it's okay, right? This ends up being a miss. This ends up being a miss. This is back Houston Rockets. This is James Harden offense, right, with D'Antoni. They're just clearing out ball screens, and analytically, the Rockets said, we're going to shoot step back threes with James Harden until we're blue in the face. Our math tells us that's going to work out over time. And to be honest, if Chris Paul doesn't get hurt, I do think they beat the Warriors. And the Warriors at that time, one of the best basketball teams we'd ever seen with Durant. So teams have done this with success. Epps is by no means Harden. I mean, Harden's one of the best ball screen scorers we've seen in the history of basketball, if not the very best. But Epps is, he's pretty good by Big East standards. So the switch works. Okay, Xavier's thinking, let's do it again, right? So now we have Giedis. Epps blows right by him. Again, that's a really, really tough cover for a guy like Giedis. That's just Georgetown. Again, that's Cooley manipulating who's guarding the ball screen, and they're just trying to headhunt who they can attack in ball screen situations. Georgetown in the past, they've run a lot of flex. They've run a lot of different sets for different positions. But this team personnel-wise, I think you'll see Cooley get to that in the years to come. But Cooley's team right now is just so centered around Epps right now, and I think that's just due to who he trusts to make plays. That it's a much different offense than we've seen from him in recent years. So now we get to a point where you're able to switch with some guards. So now what they do is they run a ghost. Okay, ghosts create confusion. Ghosts create confusion for the defense. So normally if this was a screen for Xavier, right, probably a pretty simple switch. You've got Swain 6'7", you've got Claude 6'5", 6'6", both very athletic. If that's a set by zero and not by set, if he really comes set and tries to put his chest on Swain, you're probably switching and you're playing the possession to live another day. You'll see here, Georgetown knows this. Okay, they know this is probably a switch. So he slips out. It just creates a tad bit of confusion, right? Watch Claude. He kind of shows for 1 second as if he's going to go up. Now Swain feels he's not screened, so he decides to get through. It ends up being a throwback. Okay, and just that 1 second of indecisiveness. Okay, this is a pretty good shot for Georgetown. You get 2 feet to the circle. Claude does a pretty good job recovering, but again, it's just another little wrinkle to this game of cat and mouse that we're seeing. All comes down to Epps with the ball in his hand, right, as a ball screen user. Okay, so again, this is all. We're still only at 12:27 in the second half. This is all these clips have been within 8 minutes. So okay, that one maybe they didn't like as much for Georgetown. All right, now we're going to put Ciani in a handoff, right? And again, 20. This is called a touch action, Rick. So 20's just going to touch it. He's going to throw it right back, and he's going to get out of there. It's not a handoff. It's not a ball screen. And just that 1 second of indecisiveness for Claude, he thinks that's maybe going to be a screen. Again, that's all a guy like Epps needs. Again, he's not as big as Claude, but he is a strong kid, right? And he's able to get downhill. And again, he's really cooking.
His speed, I thought, really gave Xavier trouble, and that's showing up in these clips where you're saying they're just creating a split second of indecisiveness, and that's all he needed. If he got half a step on you, he was beating you.
Right, and when a guy like this gets going, he's going. He's going. That just is what it is, and we'll talk about Xavier's adjustment in the final possession here in a minute. But yeah, it was a tough day, right? Here's another set of a ghost, right? So again, Quincy's guys coming up. That's Jay Heath. He's almost acting like he's going to set a screen. Look, he doesn't even come close to putting a body on McKnight here. And again, it's just 1 little second where McKnight thinks he's going to get screened. Okay, 1 little second he opens up, and it's a blow by. Same sort of situation, right? Does he score it? No, but you see now Abu has to come over and block it from he's on the opposite elbow. His guy comes crashing in. Again, when a guard's shooting layups like that and the shot is not blocked, that's prime offensive rebounding positioning for any team. We'll get to that last clip in a second. Heath, okay. Nick Baugh on doing the color for the game. He was outstanding. I think he does as good a job as anybody in the country breaking down X's and O's real time of any college games I've been watching this year. So he talked a little bit about this during the game. For those that were there in person or didn't get a chance to see it, they lost Jay Heath early in the game, right, who Georgetown uses as a shooter. And so they also got to some of the sound bites with Miller, and he was talking about how, hey, if you want to win, you got to chase. So do you want to win, you got to chase. That's what he was talking about, right? And
they
so
are
Heath
8 for 10 from 3 right now. Do you know what that means?
Yep. And here's what he's talking about, okay? So here's Oliveri, right? And this is a flare screen. And my guess is what Xavier's plan is against the flare screen is Oliveri needs to chase Heath over the top. Now you'll see he's very disconnected, okay? To chase him over the top, he needs to be on his body and connected, right? And we're going to see Creighton, okay, in these next set of clips. They did a great job against Xavier in this last 2 nights ago. But Oliveri gets pinned under the screen, okay? And just that little bit going under against a guy who's hot for Georgetown, it's not enough. It's not enough, right? So now, again, look at here. Look at Miller. Like he is animated here as all get out. He's probably yelling, chase, 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 chase. Right, Heath had just hit a 3. He's had multiple in the game. Now, look, he is right on his backside. Okay, he's got he's got a forearm on his ribs. Again, he's there on the catch. That's what you want. Okay, now here's another flare. He's connected. Again, on the last clip, remember, he's not connected. There's 3-4 feet of space for Heath to kind of cut where he wants. He's connected. He chases over the top. You take that away, right? It took them a while to get to this point, but eventually they did. Again, here's another Epps play. Good possession by Claude in that position, but again, we're really locked in on the chase in that possession. Same situation later in the game. Okay, again, Cooley is known for a mirage of sets. He is a big set play guy. This is a double stagger, right? Just 1 second at the very beginning, right? He's not connected to his body. Usually in a situation like this, if you're Oliveri, you want to be connected and you want to force him to use the screen almost. If you force him to use it, okay, you can do what's called a backpack. A backpack is when you're literally attached. Like imagine 5 Heath is wearing a backpack. You would call it a backpack. He's just right on his back. He's chasing him off, okay? And the idea here is you're chasing him off the 3-point line, which Xavier does in this situation, okay? Again, they force a 2. He misses it. It's a floater, right? And in that situation, you would rather him shoot a floating 2 than a 3 just based on what he's done in the game. We also saw a new fun set in this game that we've not seen before, and I'm going to throw this back a couple of years, okay? This is Xavier at DePaul. This was my GA year. This is 2017-2018 season. I believe this game was to win the Big East outright at DePaul, maybe the last regular season game of the year, second to last. And so this is an Iverson cut, okay, from JP. All an Iverson cut is, right? You can guess where it got named. He's cutting over the top, right? A lot of times in this situation, JP would end up on the left wing. He'd get the ball. He'd have an attack baseline. He'd have a ball screen, whatever. What's going to happen is as soon as JP clears Sean's face, okay, Quentin Gooden's job is to get the ball to Sean O'Mara, all right? As soon as he clears his face, okay? Najee's on the backside, so he starts to play on the opposite wing. He's going to clear his guy out. And as soon as Sean catches it, right, you'll see JP here. He's got this guy in his back. It's a chase situation, kind of like we just talked about Georgetown. JP's going to loop around for a layup, right? This is just a simple layup play. Chris Mack was as good as it got in these situations. This is what the play can look like when executed again. I mean, this is a 1-point game with 145, and you're just trying to create an easy look for your team. So here's Xavier running the same thing, okay? This is the same play. So you'll see Oliveri. He's in the Iverson cut situation. He's going to start on the left wing. Okay, he's curling over the top. Georgetown goes zone. Xavier doesn't care. They run it anyway. So watch Oliveri. When he curls around in a man-to-man situation, you're hoping somebody's trailing Oliveri. You're hoping somebody's followed Claude out the opposite end, and hopefully Abu's catching it right. Oliveri be there for layup. Since Georgetown's in a zone, that's taken away. Okay, that's option 1. Option 2, what they do, we've talked about this play for anybody that watched the last two breakdowns that we've done, Rick. So now they're getting Oliveri in a back screen DHO situation. So normally, right, he could set a back screen. You see he's put his hand up. He's really selling like, hey, I'm going to put Abu in a situation to post up, right? It's that 1 second of hesitation, right, where his defender – okay, he thinks a post-up's coming, so you'll watch there at number 0, Styles. He's down at the charge circle. He's thinking, okay, I'm ready to go for this little screen to get a post-up. Instead, he slips right off of it, It ends up being a handoff for a three. Oliveri's been making this quality look all season. So again, option one, don't have. Option two, slip it, get into a handoff. We've seen this action from more of a more simple set, but that's just Xavier using a concept, but you're decoying the concept with a different beginning to the action, right? So yes, we love, but again, they've probably scouted the original easy, simple version of that. So if they line up in that alignment, okay, it's called a stack alignment, what they normally use. Georgetown's probably calling out from the bench what's going to happen. Okay. So you're just trying to get Oliveri to that action without Georgetown knowing it's coming. So again, they haven't showed that play that year this year to my knowledge. And you're like, hey, if we can get a layup, that's option one. Option two, we're getting to this Oliveri three on the slip.
Yeah. It's amazing how many teams have been running that and using it in different ways. Like I saw Eric Fawcett. I don't know if you follow him on Twitter, but he just sent out a clip yesterday where he had like 6 or 7 teams running that same action and getting to it in different ways.
Yeah, and a lot of what you see, Rick, is college coaches don't have as much time to watch the NBA throughout the season. But once you get to the NBA finals, I think all these coaches that really love it are glued to that, game by game. That's some of the best X's and O's adjustments in the world, right? Is a 7-game NBA series, how teams are changing it up. And Jamal Murray in Denver, they were unstoppable using that in the NBA finals last year. And so I think just a team using it like that, in the most highly publicized series of the world, right, on a yearly basis, I think that's where you start to see those ramifications kind of pass down to really all throughout basketball. And I think it's a trend we'll continue to see. And I think it's a really good action. I think that's why people are stealing it. But number two, I just think since it was broadcasted for everybody to see, I think that's a big reason you see a ripple effect like that, X's and O's wise. Then the last possession, and Rick, I know you covered this a lot already, but we've talked all game, like how are they going to cover different ball screen situations, right? And in a situation like this, Georgetown, it looks like they're content to hold for the last shot. They're probably going to send the ball screener up, around 8 to 12 seconds, somewhere in that range. So in this situation, Swain's guarding a non-shooter. Okay. And I know you guys talked about the keys, and Rick maybe figures out. I don't know the exact key. I don't know if it was a time or a hand signal, someone from the bench. But
if you saw Paul Fritchner posted a video, and in the video you can see like Dalen looking directly at Sean and Sean giving him a clap right about 15 seconds.
Got it. And so, we talked about the James Harden stuff, but this is what teams were doing to Harden years ago when he was playing at an MVP levels. This is bitty basketball type of stuff you see in 4th grade when a kid's dominating and just, that much better. But Epps really is such a superior offensive player to the rest of the guys Georgetown, has at the moment. And so it's like, what? Like we've seen enough of this throughout the game. We've thrown different coverages at him, and Xavier to this point in the game did not have a bona fide answer for how to guard him. And so this is Miller just like, what? We're going to put the fate into somebody else's hands. And so, number one, Swain starts on a non-shooter in this play. Okay. He's guarding a guy that shot 4 threes the entire season. So you're like, if we're going to leave somebody, we're going to leave a guy who's 1 for 4 from 3 on the year. That's a part of it. Okay. Part of it is you want Swain with his length. Like Swain has been unbelievable in that 1-2-2 press that we've talked about. Okay. Same situation here. And you see Epps, not only does he not expect it, but he's in a little bit of a retreat here. Like he's kind of like he goes a little bit backwards. Like that's just a retreat hang of the ball for 1 second. Okay. And very good awareness here by Oliveri. Okay. They do not leave Jay Heath, who's the second hottest hand in this game. They run at him, take away his 3. And again, the last guy to be open, the last rotation is the guy who's only shot 4 threes. So he's clapping for it and he's thinking, sorry, buddy, I'm not going to trust you to take the last shot. Okay. And, he drives it in. It's an okay look. But again, you've got a guy, Heath, who's he's had a good game, but he's going off of the bounce. And at the end of the day, I think you feel a lot better about that shot going up. Any shot that Epps shoots, in a ball screen situation, I think you're holding your breath, closing your eyes and thinking the worst. I think just the tempo, if you watch this possession live, this was not a comfortable possession for Georgetown by any stretch of the imagination. I think sometimes you play the results a little bit. Like this shot could have gone in. Okay, how much differently do you feel about the double team if it goes in, if it doesn't? But I do think they execute it pretty well. I do think it was the right decision, Rick. And obviously it worked out pretty well for them.
Yeah. It's so funny when you talk about the results, you know, but it's a genius play because they didn't finish that shot. And really, I mean, you've got a runner inside the lane on the left side there from 4 to 5 feet for a chance to win it. So like it very well could have gone a different way. I'm not sure if Dalen Swain might have gotten a little bit of a piece of that from the backside or not to make it a tougher shot. But either way, the feeling I get is, and I don't know if you agree with this, I'm just big on, you need to play that possession under my terms. Instead of you doing exactly what you want to do, which is Jayden Epps coming downhill with confidence off of a ball screen, you need to do something else. Maybe Jayden Epps gets the ball back eventually on that possession somehow if they were really game planning for that. And Ed Cooley said after the game that I wish I would have given my team something else to do, given them a better chance on that play, and known Sean was going to do that. But I would still rather you have to play that possession under my terms versus your terms.
I agree completely, given the conditions of how the game is going. If you're playing Creighton, are you going to do that? Totally different situation. Did Xavier practice that? We don't know. I don't know if he talked about – I didn't listen to the press conference. Have they practiced that? I think that's a factor.
Sean said it is something that they practice and it's a call that they have in. But the nice thing in that situation is you had the timeout right before it. So you get to tell them, hey, here's what we're thinking about doing, assuming the situation is right. Check with me type of deal. And you get on the court, you see the exact look you want to see from Georgetown, which is Jayden Epps up there at the top of the mid-court, dribbling the air out of the ball, waiting for that last possession. And it's set up perfectly for you to go double team him. And I think it worked out really well for Xavier there.
Yeah, and not to be the expert on the couch watching the game quite literally in the moment, but when Georgetown got that ball and they called a timeout, I'm watching the game with my fiance, and I said I would not have called a timeout there. And my thought was, okay, like if you're Georgetown, your best offense all game has just been run a ball screen at Epps. Yep. And you can do that live. Hey, 20, hey, Jay, you're doing it. Ghost it. Like you can do that in the live. And I think as a defensive coach, that's a very uncomfortable feeling. And let's be honest, I would say the chances that they would have done that live, even in practice, are much lower. And the chances of it being executed at a high level are way lower in a live situation. And so, again, I'm not pretending to know more than Ed Cooley here, but I think I'd have let that one play out if I'm Georgetown just down the stretch, to be honest.
I thought the same exact thing in real time, and we were talking about it up in the media bunker there with Adam Baum. And Trey, I guess the one other question I would have for you, and not to be like, oh, we're the experts, we have all the answers here, but Ed Cooley did say in the post-game press conference that I wish I would have done something else. When he was pressed about it a little bit more, he just basically said, I wish I would have given my team a better chance there. Is there anything that you would have recommended that you might have gone with in that situation?
I think that's tough. I think that's tough to say. I mean, honestly, I'd have run a ball screen there. I'd have done the same thing because
just without the timeout, right?
Even in a timeout, I'd have run it because that's been your best offense all game. We haven't seen Xavier run that double team. So that's why it's nice to have something like that in your bag that you haven't shown. So like, if it were me coaching, who's not nearly as good of a coach as these Big East head coaches, I'd probably run a ghost for Epps, even out of a timeout, just try to create some confusion out of it. And it wouldn't have mattered. Now that that's on film and I know if I'm playing Xavier again, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to run something else. That's not just going to start with Epps dribbling the ball at half court for sure. But, we're playing Monday morning quarterback on that, I'd say.
For sure. Yeah, definitely. All right. What's next?
All right. Next, Creighton. And I think, Rick, the important thing here before we even get into the film is the stats. And you had texted me Xavier had 5 assists, and I know, that's not a good number, right? But how they got to those 5 assists or how they didn't get to more is I think, the important answer. And at the end of the day, I think Creighton made more threes. Creighton shot 28. Xavier shot 21. Okay, Xavier averages 20.1 3-point attempts a game. So they actually shot about one more three than they're used to. It was the quality of the threes, who was shooting the threes for each team, that I think that ended up being the difference in the game down the stretch. So I'm just going to give you some numbers here, okay? So, Rick, if you're the coach of Xavier, and Xavier shot 23s, I'm going to put you on the spot. How would you like to allocate those 23s if you could handpick it?
About 18 of them to Quincy Oliveri. And I mean, as many as possible to Quincy Oliveri, in all seriousness. I'm fine with him taking double-digit threes on this team. And then after that, I'd hope maybe Trey Green can get a few looks.
Right.
And then from there, it's maybe, you know, a spattering of Swain and Claude and McKnight.
Yeah. So Oliveri had 4. McKnight had 5. He shot 4 of 5, but McKnight had 5, who's not nearly been as productive of a shooter this year. Claude had 5. Okay. Swain had 3. Green had 2. Lazar had 2. So Green and Oliveri, who you just said you wanted all 20, had 6 of the 20, right, which is 30%-ish, right, or 3 of the 21. So that's a little bit less than 30% of their threes, which was absolutely part of Creighton's game plan. Creighton also is, in terms of point distribution from 2, allowed in the country, right? So if you look at all the points that they've allowed, 3s, 2s, or free throws, they are number 1 in the country in that percentage coming from 2. So they are allowing you to score from 2. They are 341 in threes. They are not allowing hardly any threes whatsoever. This is not a coincidence, Rick. This is how they guard. This is what they do. Xavier knew this going in, and that's just kind of how the game went. So we'll kind of dig in here to the clips and show you exactly what I'm talking about. I just want to start. We're going to go through each player and how they guarded him, right? And so here's Kalkbrenner in a drop. Drop is what Xavier does. Kalkbrenner, let's be honest, he's even better at it. He's 7'1", 7'2". This is what Milwaukee Bucks used to do with Brook Lopez last year with their old staff, and they were highly efficient, especially in the regular season doing this. And you'll see here, right, it's like, okay, you've got Oliveri at the top of the screen. Like, they're not going to leave him in this situation. Like, they're going to tell Claude, you know what? You're going to play a game of 2-on-2. Okay, here's Chiani coming down. He sets the screen. Okay, he ducks in. Kalkbrenner does a really nice job on this play. Claude gets downhill. Okay, this is called a gortat, Rick. So we've talked a lot about Xavier using their 3-out, 2-in offense. We've talked about that. That's been their offense, their go-to offense the last 2 years. They've had a lot of success. They've always ducked in the opposite side block on drives. Xavier started the game in 4-out, 1-in, 4 guards, starting Swain over Giedis, okay? And their offense has gotten better in 4-out, 1-in, just because they've got more reps throughout the season. And again, it's not their go-to offense. You're not going to be as good at – you're not going to be instantaneously the best 4-out, 1-in team in the middle of the season if that's not been your identity, right? That would be very rare. And so, like, Sasha, he sets this screen. Okay, he's not rolling to score. Watch him. He rolls, and he's almost like an offensive guard taking out Kalkbrenner here, right? And that's just to kind of knock him off and give Claude a play right down Main Street, okay? Same sort of situation. Ball screen, okay? Lazar, he initially rolls to score, okay? He ends up ducking in Kalkbrenner, and just that little duck in creates that little separation over a 7-2 guy, and that ends up being a shot. Now, again, Claude's made these all season, but I want you to watch here. Okay, Creighton. Okay, what's their point guard's name again? I apologize on the names.
Stephen Ashworth.
Stephen Ashworth is an animal defensively. He is an animal, and he made Xavier guys, frustrated all night. We saw when they had to go to the monitor, and there was some frustration for Oliveri. But he is an absolute asset for them defensively. And like, watch him here on the top of the screen. He's guarding Green, and again, we talked about Green had 2 threes. Okay, he's been shooting a lot more than 2 threes a game as of recent. Like, he's not even close to caring about helping on Claude. This is like, you know what? We're going to allow you to beat us with 2s. This is how a team allows so many 2s throughout the year, and they don't allow 3s. Is like they're just saying, you know what? We're gonna let you go. And Claude's been as good of a 2-point converting guard in the paint all season. And you know what? They stuck with their principles. They're like, this is what we do. Okay. They went under on Claude on the perimeter. So again, watch him. Shireman's going under, right? Under is usually got to be a shot. Okay. Like, I don't want to say has to be, but that's going to be the best look. Claude shot the ball a little bit better as of recent. Okay. They're inviting this 3. That is Creighton. That is their game plan. They're allowing this shot. Right. And so, Claude shooting 5 threes. I think he made 0 or 1. I think he made 0. That was Creighton's plan. Okay. They got him into some post-ups a little bit. Okay. Claude's been very good at this recently. This has been something that they've done. Okay. We saw Georgetown send a double at Claude a little bit, because now it's on film that he's been posting up. We've seen teams double this a little bit, right? Post-trap. I know that's a fan favorite topic. Okay. Well, again, they don't care. Like, Oliveri's on this wing. They say, you know what? You take your turnaround 6-foot touch shot. We are not allowing Oliveri a catch and shoot three, right? Houston, we go back to the Houston game. They abused Xavier on the post trap by shooting threes. Again, that's not what Creighton is going to do. Again, another situation, okay, get downhill, okay, Usman again, he does the Gortat roll. Again, that was Marcin Gortat, made this famous in the NBA. That's why it's called a Gortat. He's just ducking this guy in. Claude gets to his spot. He wins the one-on-one battle. Again, Creighton, even though he's scoring in the first half, they're not adjusting. Like we talk about the Georgetown game, adjustment here, adjustment there. It's a game of chess. Like, honestly, this is not a game of chess. This is a game of math, right? Like, they're just playing the odds. They're saying, you know what? We're spinning the roulette. We're playing a game of roulette, and we're just going to bank on, like, the odds are the odds, and we're gonna play them as they lie in this situation. So, Claude got to his spots in the first half, had a really good half. And we saw a hedge once or twice. Nick Ball did a great job pointing this out, but we didn't see it with consistency here. I think part of the reason we see a hedge might be because he's guarding Lazar. And, again, if we talk about the Georgetown game, okay, when you go hedge, you give up the pop three, okay? So Xavier's got an empty side. They're hedging here with their backup four. That's their backup four-man guarding Lazar. So they throw this back. That's the right read by Claude. Again, Lazar has shot 2 threes in this game. I believe he's made 2 on the year. Creighton doesn't care. Creighton doesn't care. This might have been a very specific ball screen coverage for them. Like, hey, if it's Lazar here, we're gonna hard hedge her. It might have been because Claude was cooking there for a minute. So we did see just a tad bit of adjustment, but not much. Not much. Here's in the second half. Okay, we're back to the flat show. Again, that we broke down earlier in the Georgetown game on the Xavier side. Okay, here's Kalkbrenner. He's up. Okay, they're trying to take Claude out of it. He actually even comes up maybe a step or two. Okay, and again, this clip is just shown to kind of give you guys an idea of, maybe why Claude was cooking so much in the first half. Second half, just a slight adjustment. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Xavier ran stuff through Claude the whole second half anyway, so we didn't get the largest sample ever. Claude throws it as he should. Swain gets a closeout, drove it. Swain had a pretty good game, particularly off the bounce, right? But, okay, now we're 10 minutes in the second half. Okay, they're back to the drop. This is back to their bread and butter. Okay, we saw this clip in the first half, Rick, 5 times. Claude scored it. Okay? Yeah, sometimes you just miss. Like this is the same play. Same play. Go ahead.
And this is where, after the game, Adam Cohen did Sean Miller's interview on the radio for him. And he was asked, what happened in the second half? What did they do different defensively? And his response was like, we felt like we got Desmond a lot of the same shots. We ran the same things. We got a lot of the same shots. They just weren't going in. And this right here is a perfect example of what he's talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why we joked about the made shots offense on the last time. Like, it's what are they doing differently? Like, it wasn't a whole lot of difference on either side. And again, that's just Creighton, again, like they're feeling like Claude's maybe due for some misses, in their 2-point defensive strategy. And it paid off for them, more so in the second half than it did in the first one.
Yeah. And let's face it. I mean, this is a storyline of Claude's season right now. The issues he has had have mostly come to finishing off shots and making them not just 3-pointers, but even his finishes from 2-point range. When he's struggled, it's mostly been a result of him being an inefficient shooter and scorer.
No doubt. And again, okay, watch Shireman. He's guarding Claude, okay? McKnight's coming off. And watch Shireman. He is not respecting Claude as a shooter at all. He is completely digging in on this one. So earlier, right, we talked about Claude. It's a game of 2-on-2. Creighton throws a third guy into the frame. Creighton, they guard personnel more than anybody in the Big East, at least when I was in the Big East, okay? So they're going to see who you are. And if you're a non-shooter, they're not going to guard you more so than other teams, okay? Every team, right, is paying attention to personnel. I'm not saying they're not. But some teams really just say, hey, you know what? We want your worst players to shoot, or your worst shooters to shoot wide open shots, and we're going to deliver the results. This is backed up all the way. And again, like Creighton, they're playing the math on that. Like, I think that's a win for them in their minds, at least, okay? Now we get to Oliveri. 4 threes. Again, he had a decent stat line in terms of made shots and points and all that, but he was never comfortable. He never really got to what he wanted to, right? And watch them just sprinting and run him off the line here, okay? Again, That's just jumping in the air. Again, a lot of coaches would teach you, don't jump in the air on this. You got to stay down, right? But in this situation, they're like, we don't want threes. We want twos. And it's a tough two. Like Oliveri, as good of a season as he had, right? You want him shooting threes. Like you said, you want 18 of them if you can get 18 good ones. Here's in transition, right? Xavier's been absolutely lethal in transition. Like that's not going to be defended any better than that. And now you're 8 minutes into the half. Oliveri's pressing a little bit. Like he's had a fantastic season. He feels like he needs to be shooting threes. Like, is that a great shot? Is Miller going to rip him for that? I don't know. Right. But what I do know is like he's feeling like he needs to get involved in the game at this point. Okay. Now this is the box under out of bounds play. Xavier's been running for this for him all year. And watch number 1 for Creighton. Like he has bodied him up. Okay. This is the backpack that we talked about. Like he is right on Oliveri's back number. He is right on his back hips. Okay. He's chasing him off. Like that is really, really, really well defended. Really well defended. He's not even close to getting a look at it. Not only does he get through it, watch him get through this screen. This is elite defense. Elite. Okay. To get through that, to get both those screens right there, that's what made Paul Scruggs so special when he was in a Xavier uniform. Like there's not many guys out there in college basketball that can chase around shooters like that. That's high level stuff. And this is a reason why a lot of guys haven't been able to do that versus Quincy. That just is what it is. Again, same situation. McKnight drives the ball in. Okay, he could shoot a little floater or step back. And, like, watch how far out he is on the catch. Like, they are not allowing Oliveri to shoot threes. They're just not going to do it.
And the thing about Ashworth that makes him so interesting is he came to Creighton with the reputation of not being a great defender. And when you look at him, he doesn't have the physical attributes. He's not long. He's not super athletic. I mean, this is him really understanding the scouting report and personnel and what they're trying to accomplish and being just an absolute dog about following what they're trying to accomplish.
It's a dog mentality, Rick. There's no doubt about it. And there's also something to guys that can move laterally. That's like you're not gonna tear up the NFL combine maybe with this kind of stuff. But I do think there's physical gifts that the common fan doesn't realize. Like I'll give you an example. When I coached prep school, yeah, D Davis. We had a kid in prep school, probably a lot like D and like Ashworth. That's like, he was 6'1", $165 on his best days. We had a guard who, was going to play in the ACC. He's built like an NFL cornerback, but that's 6'1", $165 kid, right? Like he looks like he's in 7th grade out there. Like he was a dog getting over these screens, and it's one mentality. And there's just it's like a magician a little bit. Like some guys just have a natural ability with their lateral quickness, and they're like, they're almost acrobatic in a way to not get hit by screens and stuff. So he may have had that reputation, but to be honest with you, that could just be because he's a Creighton guard and people can think what they want to think going in. But my guess is this has always kind of been who he is without watching Utah State film in the past. And, again, we get to 3 minutes, left in the half. Again, Oliveri's just not had great looks to this point. Again, Ashworth is an absolute dog getting over these. They switched this one. Okay. Again, like this is an okay look, but like this is a very hard move. Like this is high level difficulty pull up 3 from Oliveri. Again, I think you take this if you're Xavier, just kind of like you're hoping he gets on a roll a little bit. You just got to live with it sometimes. But if you're Creighton, and that's the best look I think he had from 3 all half, I think you're going in, you're feeling pretty good about what you're doing defensively. Now you get to a zoom. Look, Ashworth, he is right on his backside. Again, that is a backpack, like as it would be described in the basketball encyclopedia here. Okay. He makes it. It's a tough 2. It's a floater, but like that, you don't see McDermott freaking out about that play. Like that his players are doing what they tell them to do. And it just goes back to we're nailing this, this on the head here. They're giving up 2s over 3s. Same situation. Chase him off. Look he's on his backside shoulder. The rim, he's on the other side of Oliveri in the rim because he doesn't want him to shoot a 3. Okay. Then he catches the ball. Okay. Watch Trey Alexander. Trey Alexander's guarding McKnight. Watch. He jumps and swipes. Okay. It's called a jump and a swipe. You jump, you swipe at the ball. Again, that's a great score. Okay. Again, okay, that's McKnight. Sure. Go ahead, buddy. They kind of like he's not as worried about it. McKnight made 4 threes. He's been shooting the ball better. But guess what? So is Claude. It didn't pay off. They stuck with the math on the guys that they wanted to shoot the threes versus the guys that want to shoot these. Same situation, man. Like, this is just a hard shot. It's just a hard shot. Good job by Alexander. A floater from the free throw line, like, that's buttery, like, terrific shot making from Oliveri. But, man, are you going to make enough of those throughout a game to win? Again, same thing here. Same thing. Tough step back 7-footer. I mean, fantastic shot. Fantastic shot. But, I mean, it's hard. It's hard.
Right.
Here's a jump.
And this is the point where the game turned right around here. But all these clips have you been showing to this point? I mean, Xavier's been winning the game. They're up by 6 or 7 points most of this time. So to your point, it's like Creighton was like living with this and just saying, hey, the math is going to work out eventually.
Exactly. Same thing. They switch. They're chasing. They're trying to get on his backside shoulder. Okay, here's Alexander. He's guard McKnight. We just saw him get burned on the jump and swipe. He jumps and swipes again. He gets his hand on it. It's like they're not letting Oliveri be the guy to beat him. They're just not. Okay. Swain he's getting a lot of this. This is back to the first half. Now we're going to go through a couple Swain clips real quick. Under. Hey, you want that 3, buddy? You tee it up. That's what they're telling him. They're saying we don't think you're a good enough shooter consistently to make 3s off the bounce, right? Here's Kalkbrenner guarding him. Watch Kalkbrenner. I mean, he is like, go ahead, do what you want to do. I'm not even gonna try. And I'm gonna tell you, as a coach, very uncomfortable when your team's shooting shots like this. Like, it's a hard predicament. Are you going to yell at Swain? Well, the consequence of that is you don't want Swain to lose all of his confidence. Like, I think everybody in Xavier right now feels like Swain's going to be a pretty good player. Like, he's playing some good ball. Like, you're going to yell at him to take not take wide open 3s, but like, if he was so confident in it, why is that not a shot?
Shoot it right there. Yep.
Why is that not a shot? It just messes with your flow. It messes with your rhythm. It gets in your head. Like, this is what Creighton does. This is what Creighton does.
I call that I have to shoot it, right? I've got the mismatch. I'm so open. I have to shoot this. And when you get to that point in your head, I'd love to see an actual percentage on what guys shoot when they're in that mindset. It has to be below 20%. Yeah. When
I was a manager at Indiana, we had what was called 32-man. And it was just pick 2 guys on the court and you don't guard them. I mean, it's like, it was just like these 2 guys are going to shoot. And, there was times it worked. There's times it didn't. I don't know the math, but I agree. I'd love to see it. Trey Green, okay, same situation here, okay. They guarded him like Oliveri, like, look at that, okay. These other guys are going under on Swain. They're going under on Claude. They're not as worried about McKnight. Even though Green's numbers, and we've talked about this, Rick, his numbers haven't been outstanding maybe from a percentage place yet. He has a reputation as a shooter. These college coaches, Trey Green played on the EYBL. They talk about it every broadcast. He's the Peach Jam MVP. He is a known commodity as a shooter. I'd obviously paid big dividends in the Providence game. And so, again, they're making him go off, shoot it too. Like, this is a hard shot. It's just a hard shot. Great play by Green. Great pickup, floater. But, again, he's got a floater going against a 7-footer away from the basket. I don't think that, McDermott's going to be showing that to his team the next day. Super upset about it, right? Then, okay, we talked about the slip play. We talked about, when Xavier disguised this play earlier. Again, Creighton absolutely knows it's coming this time because it's the alignment it's the alignment they've been using for it. So if I rewind this back even farther, again, Ashworth, he does not care about the back pick. Like, he does not care about a back pick at all. He's just right over Trey Green. Again, like, this is elite defense. Elite. Just chasing him around. And again, like, can Green make that shot? He can make it, but it's just not, people want to say they're not analytic people, and that's fine, great for you. But if, I think these are numbers if you're not acknowledging that, teams are gonna play this way, then I think you're and the Xavier staff, they certainly knew about it. So I'm not saying anything about them, but just people across the board. Oh, I'm not analytics. It's like, this is why teams are. This is why teams are. And same situation, right? Okay. Ashworth knows the play's coming. Like, that's a tough 3. And then at the end of the day, Creighton got better ones. Okay. Miller was ripping these guys for transition earlier in the game. Okay. We haven't talked a lot about transition defense, Rick, on the podcast, but in transition defense, your matchup is not your original matchup. So in the beginning of a game, hey, Desmond Claude, you're guarding Trey Alexander. Hey, Usman, you're guarding, you're going to guard Ryan Kalkbrenner. Hey, such and such, you're guarding such and such. When you get in transition, okay, you don't have that luxury. And so now in this situation, you see Oliveri, he's pointing up. Okay, he's pointing to Swain. Hey, you got to get up there, man. That's Shireman. He's dog. Okay, just for 1 second, he goes to Mason Miller. I believe Mason Miller was his matchup to start the game. That one, second of indecisiveness. I mean, that is a horrendous possession, to be honest, for Xavier. Miller would certainly say the same thing. Again, we're still in the first war of this game, and here's Swain. Again, he's a freshman, right? He's as good as he's played, right? He's not going to be a perfect, no mistake guy. That's just that's just what you're going to have to deal with here with a guy like him. I think he's been good defensively all year, but he had some moments early in this game. Same situation, right? Trey Alexander led the Big East in three-point shooting a year ago. That's just too good of a look for him early in the game at home. Now, earlier, right? Okay, Desmond Claude, he's been fantastic in the post. Creighton said, okay, have it. We're not going to double. Xavier here, right? They've done a lot of this. This isn't a traditional. This is not a traditional double. Honestly, Oliveira here. This is probably not a clip Miller loves, but he's way too close to the ball to not be double teaming. Again, you're that far off of Alexander, and that's just a difference in one team. Probably talking more about guarding the three than the other. And I say that's not a shot at the Xavier staff. Like, this is Creighton's. This is a year-long philosophy. This is not, McDermott and their staff 2 days before the Xavier game. Okay, guys, we're not going to give up threes in this game. They've been guarding this way the whole year. We talked about, okay, you fans want you guys want the post trap? Cool. There's penalties to be paid later in the season at different times when you have all these different wrinkles. That's what they say a lot of times. It's like, if you know all these things, do you master any one thing individually? This is the pro and Creighton situation. They're like, we're not going to change it up, and we're going to do what we do the best we possibly can. The more you add to your defensive tool bag, that's more you got to practice, and then it's less unlikely that you're going to be A+ in all those categories that you do have. So here's them attacking. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think a lot of fans would look at how Creighton performed in this game, look at their defensive numbers and say, okay, well, why doesn't every team defend that way then and take away three-pointers? Why aren't other teams able to just go out there and take away all those perimeter options the way Creighton is?
Well, I think a little bit's personnel, Rick. I don't think Creighton,
right?
Yeah, I think Kalkbrenner being 7'1", 7'2" in a drop. I think that's definitely a huge advantage of, hey, listen, Kalkbrenner, he's able to use his length to contest jump shots and get back to his man. I think Creighton knows they don't have the best athletes on the wing in the league. And so what it does is like, hey, when you're playing off of a guy like Claude, like Shireman guarded Claude a lot, right? Like, Claude's a superior athlete to Shireman. It's almost like, what? Him playing, it almost makes it a little bit easier for a guy like Shireman. It's like, Shireman's a dude offensively. Defensively, he's not necessarily a juggernaut physically. And so I think it sort of plays into who they are, right? And I think, like, part of Sean Miller's identity as a coach is tough, nasty on the ball. Like Houston, right? They're tough. They're nasty. They're creating turnovers, right? Like, you could say everybody's doing it. Like, Creighton's having a good season, analytically, defensively. They're not having an elite season. Chris Beard, he's known as an elite coach. They're aggressive as all be out like Houston. So I think it's molding your identity as a team, who you recruit, and it just kind of makes sense. Creighton has a lot of movement offensively. They ask their guys to cut really, really hard. So are you going to back that up with a really hard defense to play? Like, Houston is more vanilla offensively, and they're asking guys to fly around. Like, you got to be realistic as a coach. You can't ask if you're, we want to play hard, run around on fire the whole time on both ends of the court. Like, at the end of the day, guys have step counts, and they have, calories and energy that they're burning. So I think it kind of complements, like, it's almost like a little bit more laid back defensively. Not that they're not playing hard, but they're not rotating. They're not in rotation as much. And then maybe they got a little bit more juice on the offensive side. Yeah.
Well, you always hear coaches and basketball types talk about funneling into a shot blocker, funneling drivers into a shot blocker. And I feel like in a certain way, Creighton's maybe the best at that. I don't know if you like that term, but they take away your threes. They're willing to let you get into the mid-range to do basically whatever you want there. But if you go all the way into the lane, you've got a 7-foot shot blocker waiting for you. That's probably the best in the Big East. And that really changes how they're able to play.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, Xavier did a great job with the Gortat rolls. Like, that's, they know that was their counter, and they got a lot of buckets out of it. Like, I know a lot of people want to freak out and act like the teams just like played so bad. It's like, Creighton is a really good team playing at home. Like, it is nuts in there. It's cold. Like, flying out to Nebraska is just like, just being honest, right? Like it's a really, really, really elite home court advantage for Creighton, especially the way they play, man. Like it gets, when they get rolling offensively, it gets loud in there. It's just they're good at what they do, man. Like McDermott, like they're what, one play away from a Final Four with San Diego State last year. Like he's got it rolling over there. He's doing a great job. So,
all right.
Then again, okay, you got Lazar here on 41, who's a pick and pop 4. Okay. This is the design. They know they ran this play about 4 or 5 times, but they did this specifically. We've talked about Lazar's struggles guarding on the perimeter. Okay, it's a handoff to a flare. So I'll play this in real time so you can see it quickly. This is tough coverage for anybody. Okay, tough coverage. Xavier, we used to run something like this for Trayvon Blue at a ton because you get these 4s on maybe a bigger guy. It's just tough coverage. And then last thing I got, Rick, is these under out of bounds plays here. Yeah, I mean, Xavier made some mistakes. Number one of these clips, you can't see any of it, Rick, so I didn't include it just because they had the graphics. This one, I can't see the starting alignment here. But you'll see Swain, he's guarding Miller, and he just, Mason Miller, who's a shooter, and he's standing straight up. He just kind of relaxes for 1 second. And that's all he needs. Like we talked earlier, right? We talked earlier about how Creighton, like, they are up. They're ready for these plays to happen. Like, this is the difference. Like, Swain's a freshman. Like,
yeah.
This is – I'm not making excuses for him. Like, I'm not saying – Sean Miller's not, greeting him yesterday. Hey, buddy, good job. You're only a freshman. Don't worry about it. You bet, he's on him. I guarantee he's on him. But, like, that's just kind of what part of it is here. Okay, yeah, now –
Ashworth being such an experienced guy, you showed all those clips where he didn't even think about the other stuff Xavier was doing in that possession. He only knew Quincy Oliveri is not going to be open for even a split second from 3.
Right. Now we get to another little action here, right? Again, this looks familiar. It's going to be the back screen handoff, which Xavier's been running a lot, right? And again, I just don't know how. I'll be honest, Rick, I didn't go back and watch every under out of bounds Creighton play from the year, so I don't know if this is a new play or not. I'll tell you, McDermott's known to throw in a lot of new stuff and keep you on your heels with not knowing what's coming. But watch Claude. It's 1 second of hesitation. 1 second of hesitation on the back screen. Okay, now you've got to get around a guy like Calipari who is ginormous. Okay, and like again. This is a good shot for Creighton. This is the design. It's exactly what they want. It's a good shot. It's a good play. I'm sure if they could have this back, they're telling him, you know what, like Desmond, you just got to be up and you got to, again, this is that backpack that we talk about. But we're talking 0.2 seconds of indecisiveness. You know what I mean? I'd point to other reasons why they lost. Just my opinion. And then here's another one. Okay. In this situation, Ashford's setting a pick for Kalkbrenner. Look number 1 is going to be the lob. Okay, so McKnight's got to respect this for at least a second. Okay, he almost kind of rams into him a little bit. Pretty decent job actually by him kind of doing what he can because Sasha gets screened pretty good, right? Good, like we talked earlier. Ashford's not getting screened. Watch Sasha; he gets nailed by this screen. Okay, and again, Creighton, like this is not cookie cutter cut and dry. Like this is not obvious what's going to happen coming into the play. Like this is why Creighton's good at what they do. Like we just talked about, they're a little bit helter skelter offense. It's organized, right? But it's chaos to try to guard. You don't know what's coming. If you don't know what's coming, it's harder to stop it. Okay. And it's just that 1 second where McKnight's got to help on the lob. Ashworth comes out. I mean, listen, I know you said you think this is a good shot, Rick. I mean, he's there. Like that's a backpedal fadeaway 3. Like it's not a horrific shot. But again, the make shots offense, it never fails when you have a chance. But overall, man, these were 2 really, really fun games. Just I think to watch as a basketball fan. And I know obviously Xavier fans and staff players wish they had won that game. That would have been a huge win for them, no doubt. But Creighton's really good. They're number 17 for a reason. They've got unbelievable home court advantage, and it's no secret the way they want to play. Stopping it, that's a whole nother animal. So
yeah, I'd be interested at, we always do these post-game press conferences with the coaches right after the game's over. And in this case, it was a road game. So I didn't get the opportunity to talk with Sean anyways, but I'd be more interested to talk to him like the day after he's able to watch the film, because he was really beside himself with their 3-point defense on those baseline underneath out of bounds plays and saying, you can't give up 4 of those and a half. That's how we lost the game. I'd be curious to hear him the next day after he saw the film and say, did he still feel like that way, that they played poor defense there? Or like you said, was it some situations where you're like, man, you did an okay job and Creighton made some shots. That's just kind of how it goes sometimes. It'd just be interesting to get his thoughts after having seen the film like that.
Yeah, hey, cut and dry, black and white. You can't give up 12. You can't. You can't. We know that. He's not wrong. But, you know, there's a lot of things that you could point to throughout the game, and that's just a segment of it. And that's that special teams where they've had a lot of, Oliveira's hit hard shots that were guarded decently well on out-of-bounds plays. It goes both ways. So,
yeah, definitely. Well, Trey, that was great stuff once again. Really appreciate you. That might have been our best yet in terms of really good stuff to get into from those two games. I thought I really enjoyed all those clips. So thank you for that. Also, if anyone is interested in getting some training, you are still doing that. They can find you on Twitter. I'll post the link as always on the message board. Anything else, parting thoughts here?
Nothing else. Just thanks for having me on.
All right. Appreciate it as always. Trey Scotti. We'll see you guys next time.